Too loud right now with this microphone. Let me lower it a little bit. This place is not that big. So, welcome to the co-founder meetup. My name is Johan Borch. If you guys want to grab a seat, that'd be great. We'll do some more networking later. I know you guys are excited to come be here and enjoy this event. So I got a couple of questions. Who's the first timer here? Good. Nice to see new faces. So we've been doing this since 2013, something like that. So it's been quite a while. And we'll bring speakers and we have company pitching. And we have some networking before and after the event. We try to get out of here before 9 o'clock. So just want to give you the heads up on that. So this is August 2019 event here at Capital Factory. And I'll just go through a couple of slide decks and hopefully won't bore you guys too much. See, my thing's working now. Is it working? It would if I had a mic. There we go. There we go. So that's me, or used to be me back in the days. That's probably my LinkedIn actual picture that I use so people don't recognize me on the streets. You know how that goes, right? And that's my beautiful wife. You probably met her over there in the front. She was checking you guys into the event. And we actually do this as a nonprofit, believe it or not. But it's fun to see a lot of entrepreneurs and developers come over here and connect and network with each other and hopefully start something in the city of Austin. So, you know, like I mentioned before, you guys mix and mingle before. We do the announcement, which is the boring stuff that I'm doing right now. Then we'll have a keynote speaker and a Q&A, and we'll have one company pitch today because I guess you guys are afraid to pitch. Come on, guys. Get out here and pitch. We want to hear what you guys got going on. And then we'll do some more mingling around after that. But like I said, we have to get out of here by 9. So it will help out if you guys will clean up after yourself and not leave stuff, you know, like there's a big sign in Rudy's Barbecue. If you guys are new to here, it says, your mom is not here to clean after you. Same here. So please pick up after yourself. Sponsors, Capital Factory provides a space. So definitely, you know, we appreciate the beautiful view and the beautiful sun that we have here in Austin, but it's too damn hot. As you guys know, 105. It's kind of nice to be in this building. Your Way Sports is a nonprofit that my wife has that she coaches volleyball. So if you have any kids looking to get in sports, go talk to my wife. TCRE is actually one of my companies, Athlete Properties. That's how I make my money. I don't make money out of you guys, so you know. Like I said, this is nonprofit. All the money I make is to buy food and drink and hopefully make you guys come here. If you guys want to sponsor, definitely talk to me. You know, it helps to pay the bills and developers that we have. We're looking for developers in Austin, but you know, you guys are too damn expensive. Just being honest. I know it costs a lot to live in Austin. I mean, from people that move from California, I mean, you have to take a cut, but you know, definitely it's worth living here. You don't have to worry about earthquakes. That's all I gotta say. Anyways, enough with the jokes. This is how we started. We came up with the tag macros. We wanted to actually map out all the startups, all the angel investors, and the companies around where you know startups can go to. So we still have this map that we still use. Capital Factory use it too when they do events, and I think Josh promotes it once in a while. But we started with this, and then we realized that a lot of startups either change names or they don't make it. So we started creating profiles. So, well, I'll get to that later. So the profiles is attached to you, kind of like LinkedIn, and that's how you create an account with us. You know, basically, we create our data. We get sick and tired dealing with Meetup because people will put fake pictures or no full names. And I'm sure when you guys come to events or to our event, we want to make sure you connect to the right person and they're for real. So that's kind of like how we curate a little bit who you are, who you're not. And when you're here, we have this color dots where it says pretty much where you are, and hopefully people can connect with you depending if that's you. I'm sure if anybody's wearing green here today, everybody's going to talk to you because you are an investor and you have money to give, hopefully. If you're an entrepreneur, you're looking for those developers, And those developers are not going to come talk to you, so they wear red. So, kind of like a bull thing, you put red on it so you target them. All right, guys? Just trying to get more jokes. So we got sick of Meetup and we created our own groups. We actually created an API that we actually pull all their groups from Meetup. We didn't want to do their group, we started our own groups. So you'll see a bunch of groups and members that join their group, and this is all free. We created job lists, which is something that Meetup doesn't do. If you guys are looking to hire people, put jobs. People would like to know what jobs you have to offer and what are you offering with that job. And this is all free, by the way. This is the ticketing system. So if you guys, still implementing a lot of the site itself, if you have tickets, you'll see when you check in and who's coming to the event. So like, for instance, this is me, and I'm checking in here so that I know that I'm coming to the event. This is who is attending, so you can connect with everybody who's there. You can actually make appointments. We have a calendar. So those are features that we're creating, because what we realize is when you come to an event, a lot of people pass business cards, but there's no follow-ups. And that's what the key is. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you got to follow up with people. And that's why we create the calendars, just so you can remind yourself, hey, I got to meet this guy for lunch, coffee, whatever that may be. And again, we don't make money out of you. Profiles, this is what we created with Profiles itself. We have Hire Me, we have a description of what you're looking for. So if you haven't fulfilled all your profile, people will know what you're looking for. So I would suggest to do that, so when people try to connect with you here, they know what you're looking for. And we have chat, which is, irrelevant, because I'm sure you guys want to chat by other means like Facebook or whatever that might be, Snapchat. And this is our format today. Our keynote speaker actually will speak about 20 minutes, 25, and then we'll have a Q&A. Then we'll have pitches, 5 minutes, 4-minute Q&A, and then we'll be cut off. This is the upcoming keynote speakers. I don't know if you guys know who these guys are. Anybody? Recognize anybody? Well, let me just put it this way. They're pretty successful guys. William Hurt, I think he started a company called the Creative Lab or something, and he sold it, and then he had another financial company that he sold as well. And now he started with a quantum company, pretty successful. He's in September. Joseph Kosher, he's actually one of the success stories. He pitched his company here. He met a developer. Actually, I don't even think he was a full-time developer. He was just like a guy that he paid him, hey, I want you to develop some mock-ups, and he did. Took it to South by Southwest, found investors, or he was able to pitch him more, and now he sold his company. I think his company was Scout, right? And now is something else. But anyways, he was bought out by Daimler Chrysler, and I think he ran for government or something in here in Texas. Either way, but you can definitely meet up with him. He's also an investor. Both of these guys are. So if you have great ideas, they'll probably want to hear it, or they can connect with the right people. So I definitely recommend to come to those events as well. And today, our speaker is Chris. He's in the back, and he's going to be coming over here. He's going to be talking about leadership this century. And I'm sure he can do all that while he's coming this way. So Chris, you ready? Come on, guys, give me an applause here. Come on, you guys sound like you're dead. Huh?
That's enough room. Good evening, everyone. I am so excited to be here tonight. Thank you for inviting me to speak with you. Johan, thank you very much. Appreciate you. Once upon a time, in the late 1970s, there was a consultant hired by a small English manufacturing company to help them with their business processes. He was reviewing the forms that the company used, and he noticed on one of the forms that there was a 0 written in the upper right-hand corner in a box. He couldn't read the title of the box because after years of photocopying, the box title had become smudged out. If you don't know what photocopying is, then you are under the legal age limit to listen to this talk. So I'm going to have to ask you to leave right now. So he goes to a senior employee and says, Mr. and Miss Employee, why do you have a 0 here? Why do you write zeros here? The employee says, I don't know. That's the way we've always done it. He says, okay. What do you do with that information? The employee says, we don't do anything with the information. The consultant is intrigued. He goes to the company archives, and he goes into the room and searches for records. He manages to find records from 10 years ago. There's still zeros there. 20 years ago, zeros there. He goes back 30 years, and he still finds zeros on that form with no description as to what it is. He's about to give up. And out of the corner of his eye, he sees a box labeled Master Forms. So he goes over to the box, opens it up, rifles through some papers, and he finds what he needs. It's the original master form, unphotocopied. Guess what it said? Well, I'm not telling you. It said, number of air raids today, referring to the number of air raids conducted by Germany over England recorded that day. 30 years later, and the employees are still recording the number of air raids conducted over England that day. What's the moral of the story? Well, simplistically, business processes from World War II may not work now. But macroscopically, I'd say what got you here won't get you there. Okay, everyone, take out your phones. I actually mean that. Take out your phones, go to the Amazon app or website. When you get to the search bar, search for Managing Baby Boomers Books. Some of you already know the answer. Managing Baby Boomers Books. You're still scrolling because there's nothing there. There are 0 books on how to manage baby boomers. Now search for Managing Millennials Books. For those that are spelling impaired, that's 2 L's in millennials. You're still scrolling because there are so many books on how to manage and work with millennials. That's what I'll be talking to you about today. Why is it that we can't figure out how to work with the next generation of worker? And I propose a simple solution based on my experience and my research. I had my first experience working with a millennial a few years ago, and let me say I was fully prepared. Not. This was for one of my companies that employs what I call weekend warriors. Our customers are sports events, and their events are primarily on weekends. This guy, I'll call him Joe, he looked like it was going to be great. He passed the applications and the interview process with flying colors. He comes to me at the first event. He does a great job, so I offer him a job on the spot. I say, Joe, how'd you like it? You want to come on board? He says, I liked it, and I do want to come on board. And if you're like any employer today, you're like, right? Because it's so hard to find good help. Now, the second event comes around. I'm waiting in a Starbucks. It's 5 a.m. It's 5:05 a.m. He's late. Becomes 5:10, even later. 5:15 is too late. No communication, and he's a no-show. Later that day, I get a hold of him, and I say, hey, Joe, what happened? He says, Chris, I had a long week, and I forgot to set my alarm. Can you give me another shot? Normally, I would have said no right there, because experience shows when you make a mistake like that early on, it doesn't bode well for the future, right? But I did. I gave him another shot. Third event comes around, and guess what? This time I'll tell you. He's a no-show again. The fact was, he really wasn't interested in working at this job. But he didn't do what I expected him and most people to do in that circumstance, which is to say, I don't want to work here anymore. He just didn't show up. I found out later this is called ghosting. And since I had this irrational fear of the supernatural, when I found out what he really was, I was like, whew, dodge that bullet. But I really was boggled by this. I really was. Because it was standard professional etiquette in every job that I've ever had to notify your employer when you were leaving the company, even if it's early. So I was surprised to find in my research that it wasn't uncommon for this to happen. Now, of course, not all millennials do this, but it's common enough for there to be a lot of articles written on it. That was my first lesson that I needed to brush up on my skills in working with millennials. Okay, let's do some time travel, shall we? Everyone go ahead and look under your seats for those tinfoil hats that are under there. Ah, I made somebody look. I made one person look. Well, let's go ahead and time travel anyway. Let's take you back a little bit. If you're a male between the ages of 20 and 30 years old in this room, then there is a good chance you're a millennial. And if it's 1941, then within 5 years, almost 60% of you would become a veteran of foreign wars, World War II. And if you're a female of the same age range, then because all your male friends are going off to war, the likelihood of you entering the labor workforce increases by 50%. My grandparents lived through 2 wars, World War I and World War II, with the Great Depression sandwiched in between them. Not surprisingly, both of my grandfathers served during World War II. And when you went to war, you did what you were told. Or as my grandpa taught me, shut up and get me a whiskey. If you went to war, you did what you were told. Now, if you weren't going to war, you were working. And during the Great Depression, which is every bit as bad as it sounds, if you were lucky enough to find a job, then you also did what you were told. Because if you didn't, there were plenty of other people that would. At that time, a man's worth was measured in his ability to work and bring home the bacon and Gramps whiskey, of course. And by 1945, almost 16% of females, a record, could say the same thing. Okay, so now it's 1945, and the war is over. All you strapping young millennials in this room are coming back home from war. Some of you haven't been gone for a long, long time. What's the first thing you think you're going to want to get when you get home is? Kentucky Fried Chicken, of course. I don't know what you were thinking. Well, let's just say those empty houses started rocking and rolling again. And within a few years, there's a population explosion. The baby boomers would arrive. Those were my parents. They also lived through 2 wars, the Korean and the future Vietnam War. But there was no Great Depression in between them. In fact, out of the ashes of World War II would come one of the most prosperous decades in American history, the 1950s. Jobs were everywhere. What's the unemployment rate right now? 3.7%. Really, really good. Unemployment averaged 4.5% for the entire decade in the 1950s. It grew by so much that within 10 years, the economy grew by an astounding 40%, or 4% a year. We haven't seen numbers like that since. And now with so many of you millennials having served in the military, coming back home and entering the labor workforce, you have this carryover of the systems and the processes that you learn in the military over to the civilian workplace. You implement leadership structures based around command and control because it's what you know and it works. At this time, one man would come along and change business as we know it. His name is Peter Drucker. And future MBA degree holders would know his name very well because he still reigns today as the father of modern management. His book, The Practice of Management, in 1954, practically invents business management as a science. His philosophies, principles, and ideas would become the standards by which some of the most successful companies in American history, in world history, would become just that. General Electric, General Motors, Microsoft, Apple. Anybody have any MBOs in their performance plan? Anybody refer to themselves as a knowledge worker? You can thank Peter Drucker. 70 years later, and we're still using those terms. And as more and more companies implement Drucker's ideas on business management, it becomes clear that management would become one of the keys to success for 20th century business. Okay, I'll take my hat off now. We'll come to now. If you're interested, take a look at the word management, the chart for the use of the word management, using Google's Ngram Viewer. Google's Ngram Viewer charts the use of a word in literature and publications over time. It's a super cool tool. For management, usage of the word is flat, starting from before the 19th century until the 1940s, after which it dramatically increases. It still increases to this day. So, in the 20th century, Drucker's management science was sufficient to produce outstanding business results, as we can see today. This is because the culture of the employees made management-level leadership sufficient to accomplish this. Workers play by the rules. It was a solid 8-to-5 job. They respected authority. They appreciated structure and command and control. Career paths for professionals were well defined. You put in your time and you advanced at predictable rates. You might have called yourself a company man, and you were proud to say it. In fact, the baby boomer generation coined the term workaholic, which means addicted to success, addicted to work. And their wives coined the term shopaholic, which means addicted to shopping. But I say that jokingly because it was everyone doing a lot of buying during this prosperous time, not just wives. But if you were a manager at one of these successful companies while this economic explosion was happening, you didn't necessarily need to be a good leader to lead your team to success. You just needed to be a good manager. Leadership at the time was and still is important primarily at the upper echelons of corporate structures, the C-suite, as we call it now. But at lower levels, you just needed good management. Now we understand what got us here. Let's talk about what's going to get us there. Now, most of you probably already know the difference, but let's contrast the leader and the manager. And keep in mind as I say this, I'm not saying that a good business doesn't need strong management, because it does. So here it goes. Leaders create a vision. Managers create goals and objectives. Leaders are change agents. Managers normally maintain the status quo. Leaders take risks. Managers control that risk. Leaders build connections and relationships. Managers are good at building systems and processes. And lastly, leaders coach and mentor others, while managers direct and supervise. Dwight Eisenhower, US President, and just a general badass. Oh, somebody got that one. He was instrumental in leading the post-World War II economic recovery. He said this about leadership. Leadership is the art of getting someone to do something you want done because he wants to do it. It's good. Leadership is the art of getting someone to do something you want done because he wants to do it. Managers, just ask their employees to do it. Again, make no mistake, every organization needs strong management to be successful. You need organization, you need structure and systems and processes. But going forward, it's my belief we don't need more and better managers. We need more and better leaders. And the main reason why is because of the evolution from 20th century cultural norms to 21st century cultural norms. What do I mean by that? Let's use my story to illustrate, and I'm sure some of your stories out there too. I am from Generation X, and like many fellow Gen Xers, I had one or more of my parents serve in the military, just like our grandparents did. So we grew up in this similar environment as our grandparents did. Yes, sir, yes, ma'am. But it wasn't quite as rigid, because there were some significant cultural changes that occurred that would alter our perspectives and priorities. The 1960s. We tend to value change, civil rights, human rights for all, gender equality, for example. So we appreciate time for ourselves. And while my father was a career Marine and a great father, and I appreciate all of the good things that can bring to producing results, I didn't want my kids to grow up with the same level of authority in the home. Discipline was important to me, but only to the point that our kids learned to get the jobs done. Rather than telling our kids what we were going to do, we asked them what they wanted to. And we incorporated that in making decisions, because we actually thought their opinions were important. When my kids made mistakes, we talked about them, what went wrong, how they can improve. When I made a mistake, I was told what I did wrong and not to do it again, period. I might have even gotten a spanking for it. We never spanked our kids. Although sometimes, lying awake at 3 a.m. in bed, I wonder if that was the best choice. But I, like many fellow Gen X parents, viewed our children with a more equal playing field. My kids would negotiate with us far more than I ever did with my parents, that's for sure. And we let them. We empowered our kids to be more independent, to not accept the status quo, and taught them their voice was significant. We taught them not only to get us a whiskey, but how to make a mean old-fashioned. At the same time, the chores that Gen Xers and baby boomers had to do when we were kids were increasingly not required of our kids. More and more of us employed house cleaning services, lawn mowing services. So my kids didn't experience the joy of cleaning the house every Saturday. And automation completely eliminated, or practically eliminated, mundane chores like hand washing dishes. Hand washing dishes? What's that? My kids still ask me how to wash certain kinds of dishes. This meant their experience and tolerance for doing mundane, boring, and disliked activities is low. And you marry all of that to the first generation to grow up in the internet age, and you have the millennial generation. Millennials, that word evokes a lot of talk among management today, doesn't it? And we can talk all day long about how Gen X has screwed up the workplace. For bringing forth this group of self-absorbed, entitled me generation, as some people call them. But we can also talk about the explosion we're already seeing because of them in innovation, productivity, scientific advancement, among so many other things. Because we raised the millennials to produce just that. We raised them to have unconstrained thinking, the kind of thinking that leads to greater possibilities. We taught them to question the rules because most of the time, groundbreaking work requires rule-breaking grounds. And just to be clear, I'm not saying that to justify why my 25-year-old still lives in the house, okay? This is a generalization, but largely holds true. Millennials value the purpose of their work more than the pay in it. And because they don't value money, they value experiences more. They want to work smarter and not harder. They want work hour flexibility and more vacation time. That sounds good to me. They generally don't like to be told what to do, but would rather believe in what they're doing, so are naturally motivated to do it. They like to work in small groups, not massive corporate ones. They want to be a part of something at their work, not just a cog in a machine. But that's not what management is used to, is it? The result is the driving force behind the large number of books that you found searching for how to work with millennials. They simply just don't know what to do. With established work organizations increasingly complaining about the difficulty of working with millennials, we need a paradigm shift in how we approach this. Because what we have today is a simple case of previous work structures and processes designed around 20th century cultural norms that are now insufficient to influence the 21st century worker. Whereas management would be key to 20th century business success, leadership will be key to 21st century business success. John Maxwell, one of my favorite leadership experts, said that everything rises and falls on leadership. Everything. No exception. In fact, if we are going to continue the growth of social and economic prosperity that we've had over the last 60 years, we have to have more leaders at every level. Academically, we need more universities and schools to offer programs in leadership, the way they offer programs in management. We need more bachelor's and master's degrees in leadership. Because without more leaders, we will most certainly have a crisis in leadership talent. Some would say we're already having a crisis in leadership talent. And with the millennial generation just passing the number of Gen Xers in the workforce in 2019 to become the largest workforce demographic, this becomes even more important. Because Gen Zers are coming right behind them. And if anything, Gen Zers just extend further the qualities of the millennials, the very qualities that are already testing traditional corporate management structures. So I conclude now with a challenge to the millennial and Generation Z groups listening right now. Study leadership. It is a 100% learnable skill. Automation will take away the management parts of everyone's job eventually. So don't worry about being a good manager. When you're deciding on a course of study, think about leadership. In the workplace, strive to become a better leader. Learn to connect and build relationships with other people, and build within yourself the quintessential leadership skill, influence. To current baby boomers and fellow Gen Xers, I offer you a similar challenge. You already know how to manage. Automation will eventually get rid of the management parts of your job anyway. Study leadership. It's a 100% learnable skill, and the millennials and Gen Zers, they need it. It's time to move out of 20th century management mode and into the 21st century. It's time for great leadership. Thank you.
Do you have any Q&A to answer? Anybody has any questions? Questions? Going once. It's the auction. Here we go.
You say study leadership.
Yes.
How exactly would you do that? Where would you go for that? What's beyond just experience?
Right. So leadership is defined. Leadership, what I said, is basically influence. So, and in a good way, not like in a controlling way. I could go on about the science of leadership, but basically it comes down to the management structures today used to be people just doing what they're told, because that's the way the culture was. And all of the processes that developed around that, were allowed managers to be successful. I think hopefully I've highlighted the difference between a manager and a leader, okay? So it's easy to be successful when you can just tell people what to do and they do it. Today's the next generation of today and going beyond, and it's just not isolated to here, by the way. I just read an article this morning about the same problems in Asia, in South Korea and Japan and all that. The newer workers don't just want to be told. They want to know why they're doing it. They want to know the purpose in it. They don't want to know just their manager. They want to know the CEO. They want the CEO to talk to them about why it's important for them to do that. So that leadership is absent today in most companies because it's not taught as a skill. Most companies, when they're farming, is that the right word? Nurturing their younger employees. They have training programs, right? They have classes they need to take, and they're different. Some of them are technical, some of them are soft skills and hard skills, etc. It's basically that's what it comes down to. Leadership is about how to influence others, because at some point everybody is a leader. You start out as an individual contributor. You might be a coder. Eventually, you have somebody else working with you, and that person is actually kind of supposed to listen to you. Now you're a leader. Okay? So if you don't know how to lead that person and both of you to success, then it makes it harder for the whole group to be successful. So it comes down to just like any other skill. There are classes on it. There are many methods on it. But it really comes down to first learning how to connect with people, right? Which is tough today, admittedly. A lot of technical people have a hard time with that. So anyway, hopefully I answered your question. Yes, sir. Leadership. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. There are universities that offer a bachelor's and master's degrees in leadership. Yeah, they do. There are not that many. There are a whole slew of them that offer degrees in management, as we know. So this is part of why I talk about this today is that we have a dearth in leadership. We don't have enough of it. And as I've experienced this, and I know that some of you have also experienced this. The more and more we get technical with our economy, the worse and worse this problem gets. Because if any of you have any experience working in a technical environment, a really, really good technical person, they get to a point where they have to manage. You ever experience that? And then, oh boy, that person has a really hard time with it. They're just not leaders, okay? So it can be taught. It's the whole point. It's not, you don't have to be a natural born leader. It can be taught. So, more questions? Yes, sir. Yeah.
So you're saying that, like millennials are more independent/achievers, right? Isn't that basically like their by nature a lot of them are leaders? Because of the fact that, like, I guess I'm a millennial, so I'll say it myself.
Yeah, say it.
We're ready to take risks.
Mm-hmm.
People and so forth. But that nature, are we natural? I wouldn't say natural, but like, we're at that.
There's definitely so this it still takes skills. He still has to practice. There's some people that sometimes have those skills better than others. More than anyone, the millennials are asking. So what you're asking is precisely the point. Millennials are asking their managers and their companies for better leadership because they want to be led to success, right? And the managers are they're not used to that. They're just not used to it. They're used to be basically just telling people what to do and saying, hey, this is what we need done. And they might explain a little bit, but they're not pressed really hard for it by baby boomers and Gen Xers. They just do what they're told. So do I think that that a certain group is more inclined to be a better leader? No. I think anybody can be a great leader. You just have to practice skills. You have to learn, what it's like to be a good leader and how that works. Because I've seen a millennial piss off another millennial just as much as I've seen a baby boomer piss off a baby boomer. I mean, you know what I mean? So having disagreements is and all those things that you have to manage when you're a leader is something that you have to work at. So So yeah, but long answer to that. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay.
One last question. Anybody else?
Yes.
Do you have a favorite book on the topic you steer people towards?
Leadership? There's so many books.
Do you have a favorite? I don't want to go through all my Amazon.
I will get back with you on that before the night's over. There are so many books. I'll get back with
Can
you.
you tell us more about the raffle prize drawing?
Oh, yes. If you, actually, that's exactly what the raffle prize is. If you submit feedback, I will send you one of John Maxwell's leadership books. If you win. Yeah, he's one of my favorites for leadership. Okay. Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
thank you, guys. Appreciate it. I gotta make a comment on that leadership thing. I probably need some myself because I hired a guy for construction, and I was asking him, "Hey, can you go pick up that piece of plywood and move it over there?" And he asked me why, and I said, "I don't know. What do you think? I'm just asking you to move it over there." But he wanted a whole explanation, so I couldn't, keep him in the job. And I said, "You gotta go." I need to learn how to be a leader. Sorry about that, but that's a true story, guys. I gotta find out how to do that. But next, we have our company pitching today. So, if you don't mind, let me get the one and only brave person that decided to join us and pitch.
There you go. My partners made me do it.
They made him do it. Okay. Let me go ahead and get your presentation deck up.
So I'll just mention while we're waiting that
There you
my
go.
time as a leader in the Navy, we have actually moved from the you will do it much more into the, at least in my field, which was IT, into the we gotta kind of be a team leader. So the military has definitely changed here.
Click here and back and forth.
Okay. All right. So evening. Before I launch into who I am, I'd just like to get a little bit of an idea of who you are. So how many of you, raise your hands, like to maybe have an enlightened discussion online, maybe discuss politics with friends, peers, improve your mind, Facebook, Twitter, one or two, okay. Quite a few, like to talk politics online. How many of you like to maybe be a bit snarky, question your political opponent's heritage and ancestry, aka troll? How many of you do it? Come on. Okay, of the ones whose hands are down, how many of you are lying? Okay, we got a few. All right. So good evening. My name's Jason Nichols. I'm the founder of Conclude.com, the social platform for people who love to argue. And I love to do both of those, argue and maybe occasionally be a bit snarky, not the lying one. But I love to do it. I do it a lot of time, all the time. And websites like people like me, because we go back to the same website. We click and we go to other websites, get involved in comments, we get our friends involved. So I love to do it. But there's a problem, which is that for most sites, it's really hard to do. If you go on Facebook, there's this wall of text and other people jump in and it's hard to tell who's talking to who and who's arguing with who. You can't really tell who's winning. And sites even that are made to do that, eventually they move further and further to the right until you basically have the same wall of text. So even though I like to argue online, it's difficult to do for a lot of people. I'm sure a lot of you have had that similar experience. So Conclude.com makes a solution for this problem, and it's not that complex, and it's not completely brand new. You've probably seen things somewhat like it before, which is that the platform is made to argue. You put in an argument. We're aimed at political discussions initially, so you left or right, you pick your side, and then when people support you, your score goes up. When people oppose you, your score goes down, and there you go. It's not that hard. Responding to someone else's post increases the score. Pretty easy. But there's another problem, which is that even though websites love people like us and they want to have comments, a lot of them are abandoning the comments page because there's so much work, there's so much money, and there's so much sometimes risk because of folks like our friend Alex here. You have to have moderating. You do have people, the negative side of trolls, not just people making jokes. And Conclude solves this problem because the way it's constructed, the site is 100% user moderated. Just like you have a left and a right, eventually users get a left and a right score visible only to them, although they can label themselves as anything they like, but they get an actual score based on how they actually participate. And so to ban someone, you need a roughly equal number of people from each side to say, okay, this guy really is venomous. I think most people on the left and right agree Alex Jones is. He would get the boot. And people like me who just occasionally say, whatever, jerk, I'd probably get to stay. So that's it. That's about 80% of the site. It's not super complicated. You can go online and look at it. Works fine. And kind of teaches you how to argue. So because it's not that complicated, it's somewhat similar to Twitter. I like to think of it as what Twitter should be. We're going to make money about the same way. We're initially focused as a comment plugin because that's the easiest way to make money initially. Do revenue ad sharing with the sites, little data analytics, the same way Discuss, I think I mentioned them, the same way as Discuss does theirs. And then we hope to move to targeted advertisements the same as Twitter. And as I say, because I think Conclude is what Twitter should have been or should have worked like, at least for political discussions. Okay, so that's how we're going to make money. This is who we are. As I said, I'm recently retired from the Navy, and I spent most of that job is learning leadership, but I worked IT. Spent 12 years managing software teams. I was not the technical leader. I was more the guy who spoke to the customers so that the engineers didn't have to, and vice versa. And despite what the movie tells you in Office Space, that job is more difficult than it looks in. And then my partner, Jimmy Threet, also retired Army. He's more the outgoing marketing type. And I'm full-time on the job, and he is half-time. He's a serial entrepreneur. He has another company doing cybersecurity. And this is why we're here. We have a good MVP, and so we're looking for co-founders. I'm the technical person right now. I'm not ruling out technical co-founders, but the skill sets that we're really looking for, or at least that we don't specialize in right now, is business development, marketing, that kind of thing. All right, so that's who we are, and this is where we're going. You probably recognize the company that we're hoping to replace on the wall there, but I'm hoping in about 2 years you won't, because everybody will have moved to us because our site's so much easier to use. We're launching tomorrow, and the third and final reason I came here is this was our first pitch, launching tomorrow, site's running. I'm here to, I would love any feedback. Positive, it would be great, but I will definitely take negative, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you very much. Conclude.com.
Site is a unique real person, so someone couldn't like basically come in and kind of juke the platform by creating a bunch of fake accounts and doing whatever they wish.
There is no perfect solution to that, just like every other site has that issue. There are a lot of technical things that can make it very difficult. We use auth0.com for our security and the login security, and they have some tools. Short answer, there's no way to guarantee it. You can make sure that only certain, that an email is not used twice is all you can do. Daily Costs, if you ever use them, they're really good at it. Not that I've ever tried to create 2 different accounts on their website, but they're pretty good at catching that.
You don't seem to be really kind of boxing yourself into a corner with just 2 sides.
There are more than 2. So we're focusing right now on political. You can also do for and against right now, and then we plan, we have a ability for you to create your own site, and then if somebody else tries to create that site, those 2 sides, like, I don't know, East versus West, Yankees versus whoever the Yankees don't like, Red Sox, thank you. It would just use those same sides. So that capability exists, but for the launch, we're focusing on the political, especially with the upcoming election. We hope that'll drive some interest, and the for and against. You can also have a for and against argument. But you're right. It's always a balance between, how much you specialize and then how much time you put into adding new features. But that's a good point.
I'm thinking I think sports all the time. So.
Yeah. Yeah, teams versus each other is the first thing that came to my mind. I should have mentioned football. I follow football, not as much baseball, but Dolphins versus anything, it would be nice to have some site where they win. Would be a plus. Yes?
I have a little feedback and then
Yeah, absolutely.
for you. So the feedback is, I agree with him. I was going to bring this up that I think you are boxing yourself in somewhere of a corner, like you said. Right versus left is just a false paradigm that obviously hasn't worked too well.
I'm just going to bring up the site real quick.
If you can expand that out and
Uh-huh.
give people the ability to expand the discussion from one more of a spectrum rather than just left or right, that will put you in a position where you're in an area where no one else is helping right now. And then the other thing to think about too is that if it's user-driven feedback, you're focusing on politics, and if it's just people vote you up or down, you're basically doing direct democracy. And sometimes
Yeah.
the best ideas are the most contrarian ideas.
Absolutely.
against what the group thinks.
Mhm.
So some of the least favorable ideas on the site, the way that you currently have it,
Yep.
might be the best ideas to promote or solve problems. So you might want to rethink that as well.
I agree, absolutely. We are thinking around that. So we moved a little initially, and the pictures in here show you show it as being right or wrong. If you don't mind, just if you can scroll down, that's like the little flash for was just right or wrong. You know, as more people supported you, you were labeled as true or false. And we've moved that to more of a, there's another website that does something somewhat similar to that. They're a lot more locked down. But we're moving it more to, you have a percentage of, more people are leaning your way, kind of like the Twitter ratio. It basically shows you the ratio right up top, as opposed to, that's it, you know, false, you're wrong because 10 people happen to jump on and one guy with 10 email accounts. But you're right, that is a, I spent a lot of my time thinking, is there a way to get to absolute truth? And the answer is no. I'm not saying there's not absolute truth. I'm just saying for human beings, if there's a way to get there, I probably would be buying this building, not pitching in it. But you're absolutely right, it's a tough one. Okay, yes ma'am.
Like left, right, center approach.
There is a center.
Middle path.
There is a center. So again, you know, I only have 5 minutes. I didn't want to bore you guys with all the technical details, but you can choose to be either left, right, or be in the center. Again, what you actually support or oppose, you have a score that's only visible to you as to what you actually are. But you can choose to be left, right, or center. And well, go to conclude.com, you can see it. But a lot of people, my mother is on there as center, even though I don't think she is. But what are you going to do? But thank you for the question. That's such a good idea. I just stole it and put it up there. But
Any last question?
anything else? Yes, sir.
Comment about your name, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of things that's concerned about the letter K,
Uh.
because it's one of the most unusual letters in the alphabet and all the words.
Uh-huh.
So it could be an issue with your branding, because it said that it's the most definest letter, and it's been proven by studies where jokes with the most K's are the funniest. So just thought.
So should I have more K's in there? I don't know. Oh, I don't know. Funny is good sometimes, especially on what could be an overly serious site. You know, names are always tough. I'm sure you guys know for starting any business, names are always tough. You spend like, initially it was leftversusright.com, and then I went through like so many different versions. And you know, I saw an MIT presentation on entrepreneurship, and he said, you know, at some point you just got to pick a name and run with it, because the site will define the name, not vice versa. Having said that, you know, conclude, it's supposed to be like conclusion. The argument comes to a conclusion. Conclude, spelled normally, was taken, shocking. And now I kind of sometimes think I should have just called it conk. Like if nobody cares what the name is and if the site defines it, just name it something easy to spell that people don't ask me like, why is conclude? What are you going to do?
Thank you, guys. Thank you,
Okay,
Jason.
and again, please go to the site. You can email me from the site or talk to me tonight. Welcome to have anybody who's excited about the project. Thanks.
So, like I mentioned before, a lot of companies start with one name and they end up changing the name because an investor will tell them to. Yeah, I'm sure they'll change the name. You know, they'll pay some marketing company to go out there and search for the best name for that. So, getting to that point, I like it. Maybe something with Tinder, right? It's like swipe left and right. Is that how it goes? I don't know. I'm not into those sites, but I've heard about them. Anyways, I just want to end it where want to let you guys know, about Chris. If you guys sign up to his guest raffle prize, definitely do that. And also remind you guys about the upcoming keynote speakers so to sign up. I'll turn some music on, and we'll be here for another 30, 45 minutes, and then just make sure you clean up after yourself, and I'll stop the music and tell you guys you got to go. Downstairs, they got a bar and food and other stuff. You can continue the networking down there too as well. So thank you for coming, guys, and don't be shy, and come and pitch too, okay, guys? Thank you.
So I actually talked to Joseph Copps, or he was at Patriot Boot Camp.
Oh, yeah, he's
Yeah.
in military ex.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
He's a
know
good
him from
guy.
there?
Yeah. He talked to the Patriot Boot Camp. I guess he ran to be the Austin Republican.
The Austin Democrat.
Democrat, rather.
Democrat, yeah.
Austin representative as a Democrat.
Yeah, he did that, and for some reason, he was close, but he didn't win, so I was surprised.
Yeah. He said he was one of the close. I don't think he was actually. He just went there. He got a poster.
Go with the mic and get ready for the. Hey man, Brendan. Nice to meet you. I was I got you. We want to clear out.